So this weekend, I was away in France working at the Liga awards show. I was interviewing and hosting some of the best players there. Super sick experience, but I say that all to say I wasn't able to catch any football this weekend. And it appears that I missed the best Clasico of the season and one of the best Clasicos of the last few years. I was at the awards show. I was getting notifications on my phone and I'm seeing 1-0 Mbappe, 2-0 Mbappe within like 11, 12 minutes. And then all of a sudden 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2, halftime 4-2. 4-3 Mbappe hat trick. I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, what am I missing? So I got back from France a few hours ago, and the first thing I did was turn on the game and literally watch it back. Shout out to a few of you guys as well too, because you guys were on my case saying, Lyes, where's your review? Where's your review? What do you think of the Clasico? Here's my thoughts. I went and watched it all back, and even knowing the score, wow, what a spectacle. What a performance. And that might just be the league for Barcelona. But before anything, I don't know if you guys watch American sports. In American sports, there's a lot of 7-game series. That's how they decide like competition. 7-game series, best of 7, first to win 4. And in American sports, if you win 4 games without any response from the other team, you win 4-0. They call that shit a sweep. And if I'm not mistaken, first game in La Liga between the two, 4-0. Second game in the Super Cup, 5-2. Third game in the Copa del Rey final, 3-2. Fourth game in the league, in a potential league decider, 4-3. Ladies and gentlemen, they call that shit a sweep. Barcelona just swept Real Madrid this season. Hansi Flick's Barca just swept Ancelotti's Real Madrid. One thing I'll give Real Madrid is that as each meeting has happened, it's been less and less of a hammering. The first game, we remember that. The 4-0, Mbappe being caught offside 100 million times at the Bernabeu. Embarrassing. Second game, not much better, but they got a few goals. Made it interesting a little bit, maybe 5-2. Third game, real interesting. They went down 1-0 first half. Second half came out with vengeance. Really won the midfield battle against Barca through their athleticism, through their legs, through their... Wow, they were incredible. And then all of a sudden, Barca on extra time, they go crazy, Jules Koundé. And this one was undoubtedly the most even, the tightest affair between the two sides. Real Madrid going up 2-0 within the first 10-15 minutes. Both goals courtesy of a Kylian Mbappe who looks, after every single one of these games, more and more his old self. But to be honest with you, I think this game really demonstrated the good side of Barcelona and the bad side of Barcelona. The bad side being that defensive line, which can be a good thing for them at times, but also is the cause of their downfall at times as well too, right? I mean, they play such an aggressive high line. We've seen it all season. It's the Hansi Flick special since his days as Bayern manager all those years back. And you live and die by it. And over the last 4 weeks, they have lived and died by it because they played Real Madrid, they played Inter, and they played Real Madrid again. And in all 4 games, they fell behind. In all 4 games, they conceded a total of 12 goals. And in all 4 games, they managed to come back. Now, in the second Inter tie, they came back and ultimately still ended up losing. But in all 4 games, the consistent theme was pace in behind, really exposing Barcelona's flaws defensively. And in all four games, a consistent theme as well too was Barcelona's mentality. And I think that is something that mentality, maybe we don't focus on it enough, right? Because it's not a tactical thing, it's not a quantifiable thing, it's not something that you can really just like put into numbers, but it's something that you can see with your eyes. And Hansi Flick has turned this Barcelona team into a relentless comeback machine. The amount of times that this side goes behind 1-0, 2-0, 3-1, 4-2, and still manages to come back every single time without fail. I think Hansi Flick deserves so much credit from a mentality perspective, right? This is not a Barcelona team that in the last few seasons you could accuse them of being mentally frail or they collapse whenever they face adversity. This Barcelona team has faced plenty of adversity this season. They fell behind plenty of times, and yet every single time they seem to have an answer. I always say they don't know when they're dead. You have to kill Barcelona. Honestly, don't just stab them, right? Because they might still be alive. You have to kill them. Real Madrid thought after 15 minutes, 2-0 is over. And again, it's the high line, right? I mean, the first goal, to be fair, it's an error from Kubarsi, which isn't something you can say too many times this year. I think he's been brilliant, the kid. But this is a bad moment from Kubarsi. And it's a bad moment from Wojciech Szczesny as well, too, who completely just takes Kylian Mbappe down. Mbappe steps up to take the penalty himself, finishes confidently past Szczesny, 1-0. And then just a few minutes later, again, that high line up against Vinicius and Mbappe, which, in my opinion, should really be a mismatch. When I look at ways Real Madrid can hurt Barcelona, the easiest one to point out is speed in behind against that front line. Because when you have Vinicius and you have Mbappe, that should be counterattack city right there. That should be chance after chance after chance. Literally send Kylian Mbappe through. And you could tell every time Real Madrid win the ball back, anywhere on the pitch, Kylian Mbappe's first look is to see where Barcelona's high line is, position himself, and then get ready to just go Speedy Gonzalez on them. Wile E. Coyote, man. That's all he was doing. Killing them with his pace. Second goal is similar. Ball into Vinicius' feet, counterattack. Nice pass outside of his foot to Kylian Mbappe, who again takes his goal so well. 2-0 Real Madrid. But like I said, man, they don't know when they're dead. And very, very shortly after, a set piece, which is not the way you would typically expect Barcelona to be beating Real Madrid, but a set piece flicked on by Ferran Torres into the path of Eric Garcia, who gets his second big goal in a week after his equalizer against Inter, or was it his equalizer? No, it was the first goal against Inter in midweek to make it 2-1. Really well taken goal again, and a nice flick from Ferran Torres. And then the second one was just a moment of magic from Lamine Yamal. Now, this game should have been dominated by Kylian Mbappe. When you score a hat-trick against Barcelona, all the headlines, all the storylines, all the press, all the media should be about that guy. In my lifetime, players that have scored hat-tricks against in the Clasico, Messi scored a few. I'm actually trying to think. I don't remember Ronaldo scoring a hat-trick against Barcelona. I remember a lot of braces. I remember a lot of goals. But I can't remember a hat-trick against Barcelona. And even before that, hat-tricks against Barca that I personally watched, none are really coming to mind. I might be missing an obvious one here, but none are really coming to mind. R9 didn't score a hat-trick against Barca. Raul must have. I don't know. It doesn't happen often. That's my whole point here. So Mbappe doing it should have been the headline maker right there. And yet, as has been the case so many times in between their meetings, whether for France and Spain, whether for PSG and Barca, whether for Barca and Real now, it always just feels now that no matter what Kylian Mbappe does, the spotlight is being hogged by a new kid on the block. And that's Lamine Yamal. Because again, another performance in a big game for Barcelona where Lamine Yamal has just put on a masterclass. And that's, for me, the most impressive part about this kid, right? The numbers that he's putting up, the creative numbers, the creative influence he has, it's all incredible. He's such a talented footballer. But talent is talent, right? If you have talent, it doesn't matter how old you are. But the mentality that this kid has at 17, for me, is almost becoming just as impressive as his talent. He has no fear. And more so than just no fear, he sees no one as his equal. He actually looks down at people, and if they try and question him, he'll step on them like a bug. Just look at his Instagram caption after the game this weekend. When they won, he posts a picture and basically says, like this now. Because in midweek, Bellingham and Ramos, they were caught liking a post by Bastoni mocking Yamal. He said, go like this now, huh? I'll go dunk on your team the next week. He thinks he's him. He knows he's him. He is him. Yamal is an absolute joke, man. He's an absolute joy to behold. And he just generates so much football, man. Honestly, every time this guy picks up the ball, typically on the right-hand side, but one thing about Yamal that's making him even more dangerous is the amount of times he picks it up now, more and more so as he gets more comfortable, centrally. He's starting to pick up the ball in those central attacking positions and really having an impact from central areas. And once that side of his game elevates to the level we think it can, we think he's good now. My goodness, Yamal will be unstoppable. Yamal will be unstoppable. He had Fran Garcia on ropes today. Again, similar to Inter, Real Madrid had to throw several bodies at him because no matter what the guy's age is, no matter how many goals you can see as in La Liga, he is a consistent 90-minute threat. And as I was saying, the most impressive thing for me, like you can say, yeah, he only has 6 goals in La Liga. Look at the importance of his moments. In the big games, he has shown up every single time for Barcelona this season. Both legs against Inter, for me, he was the best player on the pitch. Every Clasico this year, he has been flat out ridiculous. Big games against Atletico Madrid as well, too. He is what you call a big game player. Even for Spain, you look at the Euros, the game against France, the game against England. When the game is at its highest, when the pressure is at its greatest, when the stakes have never been more important than they are, it almost always feels like Lamine Yamal raises his game to match them. Other great players, you could say that in the big games, they don't give you enough. They almost seem to wilt under the pressure. With Yamal, he rises to it. And that's what, for me, it's so messed up to think about that a 17-year-old almost rises his performance levels as the expectation grows. That's crazy. Every big game this year for Yamal, he's shown that he's the guy. He's shown he's the guy. And the way he took his equalizer today, Ferran, again, another assist from him, right? Just laying it off. And Yamal, I mean, most players there, no matter what the age, they take a touch. Maybe they look to take their defender on. Maybe they pass to somebody. He looks at Thibaut Courtois dead in the eyes. Ice cold killer. Bends it past him. Courtois doesn't stand a chance. And then the celebration as well, too. He knows he's in, man. Yamal, the level of confidence he exudes is ridiculous for a player of his age. And you know what? That's a big difference between him and Messi, right? Again, I hate comparing the two. They're different players. And I don't want to ever put that level of greatness on like shadowing over Yamal, because that's a guy that, in my opinion, I'll be shocked if I ever see someone as good in my life. But the difference between Yamal and Messi, if you're going to nitpick, right? Yamal does tend to have a bit more showmanship to him. That's not that he's a better player. He's going to be, it's an observation. He's more of a showman than Messi. First of all, in the tricks and the flicks that he does, Messi, he never really bothered with the step overs or whatever. It's the body feints that he loves. But Yamal loves to entertain just as much as he loves to win. He loves to embarrass and humiliate players just as much as he likes to set up his teammates in a selfless way. And then the celebrations on top of that, the Instagram captions on top of that. The guy's personality shines through both in his performances and off the pitch as well too. Yamal is a superstar on and off the pitch, man. And I think when I look at the difference between him and Messi was a guy that on the pitch was an absolute phenomenon, but you never really got the impression that off the pitch, he really wanted to embrace the role of being a superstar celebrity figure. Do your business on the pitch. I go home, sip my mate, hang out with my family, go to bed at 9 p.m. This kid Yamal, superstar, man. He's a superstar on and off the pitch. And like I said, I love the fact that in the biggest moments, he almost always tends to raise his performances to match them. And if we're looking at the other side, Mbappe, right? The hat trick that he takes is brilliant. Yeah, Mbappe was brilliant today. And honestly, or I said brilliant today, brilliant yesterday, right? And his performances against Barcelona have clearly gotten better every single week. And he almost got a fourth as well too today, right? I don't know, did Balde keep him on my view, it looked like Mbappe was on. He probably should have grabbed the fourth if he was. But I just think, right, going forward, because we have to look forward to next season now, right? Because the league is over. Obviously, if I'm going to give a spoiler, right? Raphinha grabbed 2 goals. I actually thought Raphinha was really, really good, even despite the fact that he probably should have left with 4 goals today. He missed so many big chances. But even despite that, first of all, he grabbed his 2 goals. But I thought Raphinha had a really, really good game. The amount of passes he was finding. Look, I haven't seen the reaction on Twitter, but from what I watched, I thought Raphinha was very, very impactful today, even outside of his goals. But he grabs 2. Mbappe grabs his hat-trick in the second half. Barca had a lot of chances. Madrid, towards the end of the game, started to heat up. And this one kid that came on for Vinicius, I've never seen him in my life, had a huge chance to make it 4-4. He missed his opportunity. Like I said, Mbappe missed his opportunity. Firmino had a goal disallowed for handball. Tchouameni, I mean, that's up to you whether you think he handballed it or not for a penalty. But it ends 4-3, and I think deservedly so. Barcelona, in my opinion, were much better than Real Madrid today. Much better. They could have scored goals for fun. But if we're looking next season, right? Because now this is effectively the league wrapped up for Barcelona. They've done it in a ridiculous fashion, and they've done it on top of their rivals' heads, which is always a sweet thing to do. But if we're looking next season, especially for Real Madrid, right? This week has been a big one. The last 2 weeks have been a big one because Trent has effectively announced he's leaving Liverpool, and we all believe he's going to Real Madrid. Ancelotti, the news is coming out today that he will be the new Brazil manager. Xabi Alonso bid farewell to Leverkusen just hours before Romano officially announced that he will be the new Real Madrid manager. So next season, we're set for a big summer for Real Madrid, a big season. Rodrigo, another one, didn't play a single minute in this game. He looks like he might be headed towards the exit. So a lot of things will change for Real Madrid next season. I think it'll be very interesting because Alonso is such a different manager in terms of how he sees and thinks and plays the game to Carlo Ancelotti. And this is a Real Madrid team that, although I always hate the narrative around Ancelotti that he doesn't coach games and he doesn't understand tactics, or that, for me, that's all nonsense, right? He's not as tactically in-depth as a Guardiola or an Arteta, but come on, man. What, you think he just sends his players out there? That, for me, has always been a lazy narrative. However, with Alonso, I think this is a real extreme switch up between how these managers approach the game. It'll be interesting to see Real Madrid with that kind of manager for the first time in a long time, because even under Zidane, it's much more of the Ancelotti school of thought than it is the Xabi Alonso way. But if I'm looking next season, how can Real Madrid beat this Barcelona team? Because next year, I fully expect Barcelona to be the team to beat next year, both in Europe and in the league. How do they kind of compete with them? Look, I think the recipe is there. The formula is there. I'm not one to believe that Real Madrid are a million miles off them, right? This has been a bad year for them, but you look at the quality that they have at their fingertips, in their hands. It's ridiculous. They have some of the best players in the world in every single position. And yeah, there are a few tweaks that need to be made. I think in particular that defense needs a full reshuffle. And if I am going to be very critical of Ancelotti in a few things, the insistence on playing Lucas Vazquez is a big part of why Real Madrid has lost this tie. Lucas Vazquez is cooked. He was never a great right back to begin with. Now, he's barely a great player. This guy, his fingerprints are all over nearly every single error Real Madrid commit. And in this game in particular, the guy was absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. In midfield, Dani Ceballos has been big for Real Madrid this season. Next season, we know they need to improve on that, right? But in this game, again, for me, was completely ran over by the likes of Pedri and De Jong. I didn't think he had a great game whatsoever. Not at all. Arda Güler, I think, has a huge future for Real Madrid. Recent weeks, Ancelotti has kind of turned to him to change games, and he has. This was not one of his games. It was a quiet game from Arda. But if I'm looking at the recipe for Real Madrid to get back on a level playing field with Barcelona, I think the recipe is there. First and foremost, They need center backs because Tchouaméni cannot operate there. Rudiger needs to be back. He will be back, and I think he needs a partner, right? In midfield, the recipe is there. Physicality. In that game against Barcelona in the Copa del Rey final, which for me was the most impressive performance-wise Real Madrid were against them this season in that second half, I think they got back into that game due to Jude Bellingham and Tchouaméni, how industrious they were in there. They didn't let Pedri and De Jong just run the game they wanted to. They were putting themselves about. They were winning their duels, dominating aerially, playing, carrying the ball past them. They're monsters, man. Monstrous footballers. You got to prioritize that because against Barcelona, it's similar to the days of Xavi and Iniesta, man. You're never going to outpossess this team. At least not in a midfield battle in a traditional way. You're going to have to find different ways to do it. So from a physicality point of view, that midfield, they're going to have to win much more midfield battles than they did this year. And then up front, I just think, like, look, when you look at the way Hansi Flick's teams play football, Mbappe and Vinicius should be the biggest cheat code on how to break that. And yes, there have been instances in all 4 fixtures this year where Real Madrid have taken advantage of it. But truthfully, it should happen a whole lot more. And I think next season, I expect Vinicius to have a much better rebound campaign than he did this year, right? But with Vinicius and Mbappe, that should be chances being created against Barcelona once every 5 minutes. It should be. Those guys cannot cope with that amount of pace and that amount of space to run into. And you saw on the odd occasion this season when they were able to kind of stretch their legs and get running in and behind Barcelona's back four, they caused them problems. So I don't think Real Madrid are a million miles off, but this season they have been. This season, La Liga was won by the best team, and it was won by the best team by a country mile. The fact that it was even this close, this late into the season, I mean, I'll give credit to Real Madrid because even though I didn't think they were great at all this season, they managed to win games even despite that. And that's the sign of still a good team. They're not a great team this year, but they are still a good team because they won some games, man, that genuinely I look at it and think, how the hell did that game go your way? How did you come away with a win in that game? You did not play well whatsoever. But as for Barcelona, right? Obviously, the disappointment midweek is one that, I mean, fair enough. They got over quickly because clearly they won that game. But it will be one that I think throughout the summer, a lot of those guys will be thinking that was a big opportunity lost because I think this Barcelona team is the best team in Europe. And if they had gone on to win that final, I probably would have had them the favorites against PSG. And on a different day, they might even beat Inter. I think that game was just ridiculous. Going into next season, I do think there are a few positions they need to strengthen. Defensively, I think those 2 fullback positions, their season kind of burnt out because of a lack of depth for the likes of Balde and Koundé. And even though Garcia the last week or so has been decent, I think they need real specialist backups in those positions. I think up front, Ferran Torres has actually done a really, really good job for Barcelona as a deputy to Lewandowski. And in particular, right, this game against Real Madrid, he was absolutely dominating that back line. Like the way he kind of controlled that defensive unit in terms of his runs between the channels, holding up the ball, getting others into play, being a physical presence, just being a little gnat in their ear. I thought Ferran did a really, really good job today. And I think he's done a good job since Lewandowski's been out. But the quest for a Lewandowski successor has to start soon. Of course, I'm sure Barcelona have their eyes on the likes of Alexander Isak, who I don't think will leave this summer. But I think that's got to be something they keep an eye out for. But also from a tactic point of view, right? Barcelona were the best show on television this season. They are a neutral's dream. And honestly, I always say there's no right way to win football games, but I think if every neutral could pick a way how their team would win games and play games, it would be the way Hansi Flick plays football, man. It's risky. Sometimes it bites you in the ass, but man, is it fun. Man, is it encouraging. Man, is it positive. And man, does it get fans on side. Honestly, he's done a remarkable job. But next year, I do think he will have to tweak it a little. I do. It's similar to Bayern, his second season at that club, right? Where they were unreal in the first season. And even in the second season, they were quite good. They lost that PSG team who, again, with Neymar and Mbappe, one guy who's crazy good at sending players through in transition, and the other is the ultimate transition player, they were able to take advantage. And I know Lewandowski wasn't there, but PSG showed the flaws. Next season, more and more teams will be coming at Barcelona. So I do think Hansi Flick, as much as I give him credit for the way he plays, because although I think people tend to kind of highlight how suicidal his backline can be, I also think they fail to acknowledge that the way he plays also helps Barcelona because it helps them stay on top. It helps them basically pen in teams. Today, Real Madrid, for example, for large parts of that game, couldn't even build out from the back. The only way they could get out was basically a long ball. They could not build out because of how high Barcelona press. And that in turn leads to turnovers, leads to mistakes, and it leads to chances. And that's why Barcelona are the best attacking team in the world. They create chances like none other. But next season, I do think Flick will have to kind of dial it back a little bit, if I'm being absolutely honest, because are you guaranteed? It's very good when you're playing that style of football and okay, you're conceding 2, but every game you're guaranteed Raphinha scores. Every game you're guaranteed Lewandowski scores. Every game you're guaranteed Yamal is going to do something. Next season, are we so sure Raphinha, as brilliant as he's been, will have a season identical to this one? Lewandowski will be another year older. Is it guaranteed that Barcelona will be as irresistible offensively next season as they were this year? All it takes is for the odd game where they won in the last minute or they came back from 3-1 down to not go that way, and all of a sudden maybe the season looks different next year. So I do think Flick next year, I'm not telling him to completely ditch his philosophy because that's what makes him one of the best managers in the world. But I do think there will have to be a slight adjustment, man. A slight adjustment and probably some changes in the transfer window. But with that all being said, Barcelona, it has been an absolute joy watching these guys play this year. This is one of my most enjoyable seasons watching a football club that's not my own I've ever seen. I came into this year, obviously I interviewed Lewa in the summer, so me and Cam had a little bit of an attachment to Barca. We came in wanting to see them doing well, but there's no guarantee that they play well. But the way they played was so enjoyable and so refreshing and so fun. Fun is the word to describe them. That all I can do is really thank Barcelona because, look, my team has not been good this year. And I've tried looking for joy in different avenues. And I think this Barcelona team has been a consistent source of that because every time you watch them play football, every time you turn on the TV to watch Hansi Flick's men kick a ball for 90 minutes, it is non-stop Showtime entertainment. And for that, all I can do is say thank you. You guys have been brilliant this season. And that boy, Lamine Yamal. I'm being honest, right? Forget about how the award will get judged because ultimately I'm sure people will look at numbers, and which is fine, right? Numbers win you games, goals and assists win you games. I get that. But off the basis of what my eyes have seen this year, and it's subjective, but what my eyes have seen this year, the best player in the world this season is that 17-year-old Lamine Yamal. I think if they had won the treble, it would have been unquestionable. But even still, this kid is a joke, man. This kid is a joke. Barcelona are a joke, and it's being mirrored in the fact that they've won the league this season, the Copa del Rey, and even the Super Cup as well too. It could have been perfection, but I think they'll have to settle for just a little bit less. So congratulations to Barcelona, commiserations to Real Madrid, a big summer of change for them next season, and I think La Liga next year will be very, very tasty. That being said, guys, it's been your boy Lyes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this late-ish review, right? Couldn't get it to you guys on time, but gotta give the streets what they want if they ask for it. So with that being said, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts on the Clasico were. We'll see you next time. Peace.